record right now. Today's training is going to cover the perspective from a view-only user. So basically just having the rights to view things in the system. If you have been invited to participate in an RFP evaluation, you will have that access level. But what we're going to be covering today is just viewing information in the system. So we're going to be looking at your training environment and logging in as a view-only user. However, when you are in production, you will be using the production website. Andre has that URL and can provide it to you along with your login. So you will access the BidSync URL, type your username and password in to log in. Now this system is permission-based, so it means that your user only has access to do things based on the permission rights that you've been given access to. So the user that we're looking at today only has view-only rights, so that's how we will be viewing the system. When I first log in, I'm directed to a home page. This home page is specific to each user. So here you're seeing, you would see notices related to just your user. If there is a company-wide notification that's been posted, you would see that here. But you're also able to see solicitations that are closing within a 24-hour period on your home page. So this isn't a solicitation that you're over. It's not a solicitation that you created. It's basically just allowing you to kind of view what's happening in the system. With this solicitation here in the system, you can click on the link and it will take you inside of the bid details. So you're not able to see how to edit or how to create any of this because you're just a view-only user. You only have access to see the data that's connected to the solicitation. So if you needed to see a report on the vendors that have viewed the solicitation, who was sent an invite, who was sent a notification about questions and answers or addendums, you would have access to that data. So all of that information is held within inside the bid data itself. The report is what I had just clicked on. You also have access to view the number of suppliers viewed. So this lets you know who has viewed those solicitations and did they download the bid packet. You can deep dive into the vendor's information by selecting on the vendor name here. And it will take you into the vendor management tool that allows you to see information about the vendor itself. You can even see here if the vendor holds any qualifications or pre-qualifications. And you can see a series of business profile information that the vendor may have posted about themselves. You also have access to a history of the vendor, so you can see what solicitations the vendor has participated in before and if they were awarded any solicitations. And all that information we obtained through our home page by just selecting the link on a solicitation that was closing within a 24-hour period. So right off the top, we can see the description. We can see that this is a sealed solicitation. If I click on the icon, it does bring up a glossary for me to read what that solicitation icon means. I can see it's an IFB bid type and there's no fee. So since the city of Tallahassee is contracted with Periscope for the BidSync product, there's no fee for vendors to participate in these solicitations electronically or offline. I can see that this solicitation does have offers. I can't see what those offers are. I can just see that a user has or a vendor has turned in an offer and the time remaining on the solicitation. Again, if you're needing to access the bid details, you'll click on the link. That will take you into the bid details where you can view a report of information during the time of the bid, who's viewed, and if any questions and answers were posted. You also have access to download the bid packet if you needed that information. And you have access to see the workflow. So who approved a workflow if there was one. If there were any comments on the workflow, you would have access to see all that and a history of the workflow. Going back to our home page, We're now going to move to the search tab. And the search tab is known as the spec library in the system. It basically allows you to search through all contracted agencies' public solicitations in the BidSync system. So that means you're able to search for City of Tallahassee's bids here, as well as other agencies using the BidSync system. So not just the City of Tallahassee, all agencies that have made their solicitations public in the BidSync system. You can search for that information through title and description, a bid number if you have it, a product code. You can deep dive into a region, and you can narrow that down into a specific agency if you needed to. You could search by NIGP code. You can search through a list of current solicitations that are live or a past bid solicitation. Now, the thing that's nice about this search page is it just kind of gives you information on what's happening within the BidSync system, what kind of solicitations are being released. If a bid tabulation was posted here, you would have access to see that. If this agency, Broward County, had posted one, you'd also be able to see the award if they made that public. So the search tab for you, view-only users, will just be a place where you can come in and search through current and past bids on the website. You also can search through the contracts tab here, which gives you access to all agencies who are using the contract light management tool with BidSync. You would be able to see who's using it here. And then if they had contracts posted, you could select contracts and come in and actually see the contracts that are posted within that agency's account. So these are public contracts that the City of Claremont has made available for vendors and agencies to view. If you click on the link, it will take you into the contract detail, where you can see detailed information about the contract. Again, you're only able to see what that agency has made public, and that's under that contract search tab. This progress payment section, you will not, you're not using it, but we do have some agencies in the system who are managing their payments in this tool. And if that's been made available for you to view, you can access that information here. Before I move on, is there any questions on the Home tab or the Search tab?
One thing I'd like to add, Shannon, sorry to break your pace here. But
no, you're good.
The search capabilities here, although primarily used by procurement people, if you're about to enter into an RFP with us together as a team or a bid, and we're doing something for the very first time, like looking at body cameras for our police department, you know, it's hard to determine what should I write statement of work. We have this tool where we can go out and look at what other cities might have done to get good ideas, to establish relationships, to get names, and we can, you know, email some of these folks if there's something else that we still need to get. Same thing with contracts. Do we have the proper contract clauses to help protect the city? So view only can be very powerful here just with that search tool.
Two other things as well is a lot of times people say, I don't know a vendor. Well, if we go look at Broward County or whatever, automatically we can get their vendor list. So we might have been working with these 5 or 6 vendors and we needed minority vendors or whatever. We could go into theirs, look at their vendor base and be able to pull vendors that way. Now the second thing is, although we do have contract information in here, the repository on record is still open.
Any questions or comments before we move on? All right, Shannon, we're good.
Great, thank you for those comments. We're going to look under this Source tab. The Source tab in the system is which houses the solicitation. and the different states of a solicitation for City of Tallahassee only. So the search tab allowed you to search through solicitations posted by all entities contracted with BidSync. But the source tab is what really just shows solicitations posted by City of Tallahassee. Here there's bids that are held status, live status, and closed. You can also view a history through here. And then if you are involved in evaluations, this is the tool where you'll access that as well. We're going to look at the View Bids section right now. The View Bids section will allow us to see if there's any held solicitations that have been created and are getting ready to be released in the system. So we can see that Fran has created one solicitation here, and Claudia has created another. If we needed to, we could click on the title or description of the solicitation, and we could see the bid details that Fran started to create. We can see the documentation that Fran attached to the solicitation for the vendors to fill out. And we can see the different items that she created. So these would be the solicitation items that we're looking to gain pricing on from vendors once this is live. Let's go back to our main screen. The same goes for the solicitation that Claudia created. We could see how she created that and the details that she's added. Now, notice that we're under a held bid section. So that means that these solicitations are not live. This is where the solicitation goes and remains until it's been approved through a workflow and has been released by a user. A solicitation can also remain here because it's one that you create or release quite often. And so you have a template held here so that a bid creator could copy from it and use those details to hurry and create their solicitation and then release it. This is kind of a holding tank of where solicitations will be held until they're ready to go live. Once the solicitation is ready to go live, it will move over into the current bid section. Right now, I'm not seeing any solicitations here that are live. Sometimes that can be due to your search. So if your search is defaulted, so sometimes you need to adjust your search and submit to make those solicitations show up. So just by adjusting my search, I saw that we do have a live solicitation. You can search by title, bid number, departments. If you were a solicitation creator and there was a solicitation created by you, you can filter that and view it here. But this training today is just for view-only users. And so you're just viewing information that's already been created. So we can see that the bid that we saw on our homepage, because it's closing within 24 hours. So it will move to our homepage for us to keep a lookout on it. However, any current bid would also be posted here under the current bid status. Now, the great thing about the current bid section is it houses a lot of data that you're able to access because this solicitation was created electronically. And we've kind of already talked about those features, which are the notifications, the vendors viewed, and the Q&A. This notification feature is a really great feature because it kind of tells you where the solicitation's at, if vendors have come in and looked, kind of what point are they at, have they completed documents, have they submitted an offer, have they accepted addendums or amendments? If they have accepted documents, how many have they accepted? 3 of 10, 2 of 5, so it will show you that detail, and when they first viewed and last viewed. You also have access to the complete notification list. So we're in a training environment and it doesn't send out notifications, but what you would be able to see here is the vendor, how the notification was sent through fax or email, and if it was successfully received. So you have that data, as well as for all the other triggers that could happen on a solicitation. So if a vendor posts a question and that question's been answered, that sends out a notification and you have access to that information. A pre-bid conference sends out a notification. A bid retraction sends out a notification. Addendums send out notifications. So you have access to see if those notifications have been received. If they, for whatever reason, have failed, there is a list here called a bounce back list that BidSync support team receives, and they actually work that list to try to get updated information from the vendor so that we can make sure vendors are receiving the notifications here. You can even create a report off the data on this screen. So click on Go to Bid Information, takes us back to where we were at, where we clicked on the report section. The view, we already showed this a little bit, but this is kind of like your plan holders list. So the vendors that have come in and participated, and if they downloaded the bid packet. In this case, this vendor submitted their offer electronically, which did not require them to download the bid packet. They could complete all the documents online electronically and submit it to you that way, and that's how this vendor did it. I know that because when I was looking at the other page on the report section, they had a green O next to their name, which indicates that they've submitted an offer, and that offer is an electronic offer. Now, we can't see if that's an actual pricing offer or if that was a no bid offer until the solicitation closes, but we know that they submitted something. So the source and view bids is where we're at under that current bids tab, and we clicked inside the description to get all the bid detail information. So again, why is solicitations live? You have access to the notifications, who's viewing, and the questions and answers that have been posted. Once the solicitation closes, it moves over to the to be awarded bid section, and this is where it's housed for it to go through an RFP evaluation process or for it to be awarded, go through an awarding. Now, you don't have access to see pricing or any information like that, but you can see the bid number, the title of the solicitation, when it ended, any offers were received, and who the contact is. If you click on the title of the solicitation, all that you're able to see is the bid details and the data that came across from when the bid was live. So this solicitation had a question on it. We can see the question and the answer, but we don't have the ability to see any pricing data because we're a view-only user. So we can't see which vendor submitted an offer, and we can't see what pricing they came in at. Going back over to this, let's just look at this one, because this one I'm seeing does have offers. So when we click on that one, you notice I'm seeing the item details on the solicitation itself. So that's how you can dig into the detail of the line item, which is carpet. But again, we can't see what the vendor submitted or who the vendors are because we're a view-only user. But you do have access to all of that great bid data and what the solicitation looked like when it was live. You again can see if there was any offer submitted, yes or no. If a partial offer or if there's multiple line items and a vendor only submitted an offer on a few line items, instead of getting a yes or a no, you'd get a number. So you know how many vendors submitted an offer. And again, be very careful of your search box, because if you have a default to a specific department on your account and that department doesn't have any solicitations out, you won't see any past solicitations for that department. So you can narrow it down by department if you're wanting to specifically see solicitations that have closed for individual departments, or all departments will show you a list of solicitations that are out for or that have closed for the city of Tallahassee. So we talked about the held bids, current bids, and the to be awarded bids. Is there questions about these three different solicitation statuses?
Jim, we do have a question.
Okay.
You bids that it goes through a workflow. Is there a place
Yeah.
to see where they're at in the workflow? See, like if it's gone through legal or gone back to procurement?
Yes, there is. So let me just move to a held bid status. and we can select one of these solicitations. Right here on the solicitation, there's an approval section. And if we look at the view approval flow, that will show us who submitted the solicitation and who approved it. If it has not been approved, we would see that it would be pending on Claudia, and we would be able to see how many days it's been pending. There's also a view workflow history, so we could see if somebody denied the workflow and sent it back with a comment. That would all be found here in the workflow history.
Thank you.
Yep. And so on every solicitation, you'll see this approval section. Vendors don't see this information. It's basically for internal views only.
One thing I'd like to add real quick is that in addition to workflow just for sending out the solicitation, we also have workflow set up on the award process.
Yeah.
So before an award official, right now we have a fairly simplistic workflow, but it could add additional levels of review. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so we were under the source and view bids. That's how we saw the held bid section, the current bid section, and the to be awarded bid section. The history section holds a history of solicitations that have been awarded or solicitations that have been marked as a paper response only, meaning the vendor was not supposed to submit their solicitation through the system. They were supposed to download a bid packet and turn it in offline, so a paper response. Paper response solicitations will move directly to a history, and any solicitation that's been awarded or closed out will move over to the history section. So this again is just past bids for the city of Tallahassee. If you wanted to view everybody's past bids in the BidSync system, you'd have to do that under search. But this source section is your agency only. So the history section is where you can view historical solicitations. This is also a great place to come in and to do research to see different types of solicitations you've released in the past. You can search by different historical periods. You can search by, again, title, description, bid number, by department, by NIGP code. You can also search by contracts that you've created if you're a creator or that you've been attached as a contact on. It's the same thing with every solicitation. You can click on the link and the link will take you inside, download the bid packet, and you can see all of that great data that was maybe captured while the solicitation was live. So historically, you still have access to everything. It's all stored in the system and you can report off that data if you need to. That's the history section on the account. Is there any questions about the history section?
Shannon or Andre, what's the plan for the history? Are you just planning from here forward, or will we backfill with any data?
History, as far as bids, will be as we go live. But one of the things that we talked about in earlier sessions, and I don't recall if we have said it here in this session, but OnBase is and will always be the main source of data. Once a bid is closed, we will be extracting all of the responses, solicitation, the award information, all that will be going to OnBase like it does today. This is just another place you can go.
So, like the active template there, the hold status, would we have a repository of recurring bids that have gone through the process at some point, or would that be built up over time as we proceed through?
Built up over time. Like, for instance, we're not going to put up the, you know, the bid that we used to get the city term contract for engineering services until we need it again. But once it's there, it will be there, and you can just copy it for future use. Good question. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? Okay, the calendar section is basically just a calendar where things done internally post. This isn't connected to any Outlook system you might already have. It's just an internal calendar in the tool. The RFP eval section is which houses the evaluations that are being done in the tool. If you are an evaluator and you've been invited to evaluate in an evaluation, you will come here to the eval section, but you will want to watch the RFP eval training session if you were not in that earlier training. That will teach you how to participate in an evaluation. But here you would be able to see any current evaluations or past evaluations that you have access to see. So current evaluations, you'd only see something there if you were invited to see those evaluations. Past evaluations, you'd be able to access, and you'd only be able to access the information that's been made public. So some information's private when doing evaluations, for instance, criteria items, and you do not have access to see that unless your user was invited to participate in that private evaluation. So just be aware that the source RFP evaluation is the tool that is managing all the evaluations. This usually happens after a solicitation has closed and is in the past bids section under view bids. So an evaluation will be created here in the evaluation tool. Once that has been ran and has been determined who to award to, then a agency user that has that permission can go in and award. Any questions about this RFP evaluation tool? Again, there's a separate recording, so if you need to participate in evaluations, please make sure that you gain access to that recording. The next tab we're going to look at is the contracts tool. With the contract section, your users will only have access to view data. You will not be able to create contracts or edit contracts. Now, the user that I'm logged in with has the rights to create a contract and edit a contract. You will not have that capability. You will, however, be able to use this tool to search for current contracts or archived contracts. You can come in and review the contract details by clicking on the title of the contract, and you'll be able to see any information that's made available for you. So the contract details and any contract items or documents that have been attached and made available. Again, you will not have an edit feature, but you will be able to return to list. So this is where some of your contracts will be housed. And so if you ever need to gain access to the contracts that are in the system, this is where you'll access them from, the contracts and search contracts. You can also see pending contracts, so contracts that have been created but have not been released live yet because they're not active. They're still in a state where maybe we're waiting for signatures or there's negotiations going on, or legal is still trying to put the documentation together. So the pending contract works very similar to the way that the source held bids work. It's basically a holding tank, but in this case, it's a holding tank for contracts. Now, also keep in mind that you're viewing data based off of your search criteria. So if you're viewing a specific department and you're not seeing any contracts, it's probably because that department doesn't have contracts here. So keep in mind how your search has been set up. And again, you have pending contracts, which are still in a holding phase, and then current contracts, which are live and ready to start purchasing off of. With contracts, you can search by contracts as a whole, or you can even deep dive into items off of a contract. So here we have a contract for chairs, and this is the contract title and number that that item is connected to. So if you're just searching for an individual item, you maybe want to know if you have a contract out for new computers, because maybe you have to buy computers for new users that are starting, so internal users that are starting. Maybe you need to purchase papers and pens or grab lunch and you have certain vendors that you can only purchase lunch from, you can come in here and type the specific thing that you're looking for and run a search to find the contract in the system if it's held here. Now, that's the only functionality that you will have under the contract section as a view-only user. So is there any questions about this contract section? Or Andre, do you want to clarify some points about the different locations contracts are held?
Well, throughout this implementation, Matt, Wes, and I have met a few times to talk about the features and functionality that this system provides. And we're looking at this as a potential tool to bring all of our city contracts together. In preparation for that, in addition to contracts, we've segregated them into 4 logical types where we will have intergovernmental agreements, revenue type contracts, and let's see, we're going to have grants, and then we're going to have standard contracts. It's our hope that even though OnBase is our main repository, solicitations that result in contracts or are associated with grants, their associated contracts will be able to be found in this tool. The reason why we like this is, and we see it as a possibility to be used as a central repository, is that as contracts are expiring or as the insurance requirements of our vendors begin to expire, we will all be notified. We can set up our procurement team to receive a notification. We can receive departmental users to get a notification, just as a heads up. 60 days from now, this contract is going to be expiring. Do you want to extend it? Okay. If a vendor, if the system sees that their insurance certificate is about to expire, 60 days ahead of time, they'll get an email saying, please upload the latest and greatest version of this document so that we can keep, your records current. So there are some possibilities, because right now today, as you know, you find procurement contracts in SharePoint. You can get access to the treasurer clerk's list, which is in Excel, also on our SharePoint. And there's other places that you can go to as well. If this is, in the end deemed an acceptable solution, then, Matt and I will continue building this out. At the very beginning of our go live, this tool will only have contracts that we have created in BidSync. However, we will either manually add our old contracts over time, or because we're past the point of having our summer interns, we will have some resources work on it as time permits, but also as an option, BidSync, as a change order, we can ask for them to, as I would imagine, supply them a template. They would supply us a template. We would fill out that template and have contract information loaded into the BidSync system. But that comes with a fee. If it's something that's we see that we're not making sufficient progress on manually, we can explore that, because we've got some good contract information that we could bring in from our different sources. Okay. So I guess that's all I would like to add with respect to that. But if you have any specific questions that I haven't addressed.
I was just wondering, when you're working with the department to develop a RFP and then contract and so forth, like, for example, if I was working with Fran or Claudia or how I have in the past, would I have the view-only status then, or how does it work with departments you're working with?
I would say, based upon your question, that most often, if you're working with Fran or Claudia or Keith or Robert, on the development of an RFP or a bid, more than likely you're involved in what the requirements are, what the scope of work is. We would be setting you up as probably the RFP chair. And if so, you would have the evaluator access, and which would give you more access than just the view only. You would be an integral part of the determination of the categories, the weights, the measures, all of which go into the RFP. So yes, you would have some additional access.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Another type of access that we're also talking about and we're pretty anxious to give out is the ability to do what are called quick quotes. This system gives us the ability, as I see it, to replace all the phone quotes that we do with electronic quotes. The benefits of that will be, you know, human nature is, if I need to order t-shirts for something and it's under the price limit of the city that requires a formal solicitation and I have to get my phone quotes, I'm going to call pretty much the same 3, 4, or 5 people that I always call. By using the quick quote functionality in BidSync, if you can describe, this is the brand, this is the weight, this is the logo, and you can even upload the logo. I want pocketed, non-pocketed. You can get quotes from your vendors. You can upload pictures. You can upload documents. You're not limited to anything, really. And you can set a time. And we're going to train people on how to do and put out quick quotes. The benefit is going to be that every one of our vendors are going to get a chance to respond. Every local vendor, every minority vendor, every small business, every woman-owned business are now going to get the same phone call that only 3 people got. So we're really excited about that. Some of the other agencies in Florida that have implemented this tool and this type of process are seeing more competition, more responses, and lower prices. So what we're going to be doing is, as we get closer to go live or a little bit past go live, we're going to put together a training class for those people who are interested, and we're going to take them through like this, a 2-hour training, and give you access to a training environment so you can practice and play. And when you feel comfortable, we're gonna turn you loose. Okay, Robert.
How do vendors interact with the system? Participate
Shannon, as part of this view-only training, is there any part of your agenda for looking at it from a vendor perspective, or can you answer, Robert?
What was the question, Robert? I didn't hear it.
Just curious how vendors interact with the system, how they are aware of it, that the city is using it.
Yeah, I can show that part if you'd like to see it. But basically, once a solicitation goes live, any vendor that was invited, or what we call suggested vendor, meaning they match the solicitation that was released by classification codes and area, they get a notification that the solicitation's out for them to come in and to view. Also, any solicitation that's been made public is viewable and accessible by all vendors in the BidSync system. Now, when an agency is creating a solicitation, they can create what's called a placeholder account or a quick ad to invite vendors who are not even registered with BidSync so that they get a notification. So that's a big way of how vendors know what is coming out, but they also can come in and search through the system and see all solicitations that have been made available or public. We also did an initiative where Andre provided a vendor list, and we sent out a vendor notification just letting vendors know that City of Tallahassee is going to be using BidSync and to come in and to register to make sure to get notifications for the solicitations. So those are 2 ways, I guess, that vendors know that City of Tallahassee is using the system so that they can participate in solicitations online. Does that help address?
Yes, thank you. Something else that we've done is we went a step further, and we went into DemandStar and we looked at all of the solicitations that the city released for the last 3 years. And we took out the names of all the vendors who participated but may not have won. We want them to know that the city of Tallahassee is moving. We just don't want our current vendors to know. And then we're also working with the communications department, and we're going to have a multi-pronged communication blast. Facebook hasn't been determined to be the right way because that's more social, but for the business social media, the city of Tallahassee has a LinkedIn account, and Allison says that many of our vendors are linked in with the city of Tallahassee. So we're going to have a LinkedIn blast. We're going to also update the website, and that's being done right now. And then we're also going to have potentially a spot on the TV show on Channel 14. We're going to start off with some text that just says the city of Tallahassee is moving its notification of solicitations to BidSync. Go here to register. But then Allison would also like us to start getting some talking points for a 20-minute show where it's, I forget what they call it, around the town or whatever, but it would be something that we could use for training. It would be something that could just run once a week for every month or something like that. And it's going to be focused on how to do business with the city of Tallahassee. Okay.
We're also reaching out on our purchase orders, like invoicing departments. You know, you can let your vendors know. And also, too, we're going to have some sort of an open house. We're looking in September to have an open house to invite companies to come in and register. One thing we're really excited about is this is a city-funded initiative. Vendors with BidSync with DemandStar had to pay $99, plus sometimes additional fees, uploading and stuff like that. This is totally funded by the city. So that's going to open up a whole new area of vendors that can come in.
And I'm assuming our newspaper notices will get changed as well, so that.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So if we currently want to notify a vendor that they can access the system, can they send them to a where?
We will give you a link, and
Okay.
it's just bidsync.com.
I don't know how
Like I said,
popular it
it's
is. I'm not
totally
familiar with it. Everyone's used DemandStar for many, many
It's
years.
pretty popular.
Okay.
To give you a feel, I went out to our production site and did a search on vendors in Tallahassee, and I found a good majority of our vendors there.
Right.
And I found other vendors, especially smaller businesses, are already on BidSync. Good questions.
And the additional ones, like she mentioned, those would be what we call our supplemental vendors. So if you find that you're putting an RFP or a bid out and they're not on the list, by all means, still provide us those, and we'll make sure that they get an opportunity, or at least a notice.
All right, Shannon, back to you.
Okay, so two things I want to cover under the Tools tab are the My Info section and Reports. So the Tools section with the My Info, this is basically your user's information. So if you needed to update your user's, your username, your email, your first, last name, things that are on this My Info section, you could do that. You also, if you were in charge of any workflows, you could delegate your user. In this case, we do not have any view-only users as approvers, but if ever down the road you become a workflow approver, this is where you can delegate your workflow approver for a bid release or a bid award. So you do have that capability. You also have the ability to run reports. So with your ability, you have access to some standard reports, but you could also create your own ad hoc reports for the bids template or the contract template if you needed to. So this is just a way for you to come in and create a bid template to select the data you want to report off of so that you can have that template held in the system so you can always run it. So maybe you want to see how many MBE vendors have been awarded solicitations within the past year, you could create a template for that. Or if there was a solicitation you were helping to create and you want to see, based off of that solicitation, some information about it, you could report off of that as well. But this basically allows you to put in a report title, a report description. All the data elements are selected, so if you need to, you can deselect any bid data. So we're under the bid data tool. If you wanted this data field to be searchable, then you would make sure that that box or that magnifying glass is selected. If you don't want it searchable, then you can deselect it. You even have the ability to kind of edit some information. So let's say you don't call it end date, you call it solicitation closing date. You could change that name and save it so that you're seeing the data and how you communicate it. So you'd go ahead and deselect anything that you're not wanting to report off of. And if you decide that you end up needing it, it's just a matter of just selecting the X and making it a green check mark again, and then submitting your template. Your template will then show up under that bid template for you to click on, fill out your parameters. You can even sort the data by specific things that were checked. And then you can run your report in different report types. So I just ran the first report type just so you could see an example on the screen, but it gave me some information about bid data that's in the system based on the data elements that I selected. You also have that option when running for contracts. So if you needed to run a contract report for how many contracts are expiring in so many days, you could come in and do the same thing, create a report template, hold that template, and then you could export it in Excel to then find those date ranges that you're needing for those different contracts expiring. So that's a great feature that you have access to as well as a view-only user. Now, if you're noticing that there are things that you need access to, but you do not have access to it, it's most likely because your user doesn't have the permission. So if you're finding that that is happening, please reach out to an admin user on the account. Andre, Fran, and Claudia right now are all admin users. They could go in and adjust your permissions or give you access to certain features or capabilities within the tool. So if you're finding that out during the training session, that you're not able to do everything you need to do, then please reach out to them so they can try adjusting those permissions for you. You will have access into this training environment. So everyone that's a current user in the system and was brought over during implementation has a username and password. The username is your email address and the password is test, all lowercase. Andre can provide you the URL to this training website so that you can come in here and look around with your user and create reports if you needed to. But besides that, you also have access to a support portal that can help you in gaining information. So when you first come to the support portal, you will need to create a login for yourself. So you'll sign up, and then once you are signed up, you will be able to access all of the user guides that are held here. So once I'm logged in, you're able to just use the search bar to search in the tool. So you could search things like, how do I view solicitations? How do I view contracts? How do I create an ad hoc report? So those are different things that you could see here. And you can try typing different keywords to see what comes up. And all you have to do is select that article, and then you can read through. It will walk you through how to search for different things in the tool. So this is that search box that we were looking at that allows us to search the system for all agency solicitations. But you'll have access to that support portal to view that data. Andre also has the support portal URL that he can provide you as well if you would like access into that. So are there any questions about what we covered today with the Home tab, the Search tab, Source tab, Contracts, and then Tools, which covers managing your information and reports?
Okay, sounds like we're good.
Okay. Thank you for attending this training session. I will make this recording available in case you need to re-watch it, but please make sure as soon as you get your login information that you are accessing the training environment so you're getting experience in there and you're kind of working out the kinks before we actually go live. If you do have any questions, please reach out to Andre, Fran, or Claudia. And if they cannot address those questions, then one of them will reach out to myself and I will get that question addressed for you. Anything else you want to add, Andre?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, thank you and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Shannon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.